What's up, guys? Scott Cooney with CleanTechnica here with Henk Rodgers, CEO of Blue Planet Energy. We're at RE Plus in Anaheim, California. You guys have a really cool display here. I want to ask you about some of your products and such, and talk to you a little bit about some of the projects that you guys have been doing over the years. Henk is a good longtime friend in Hawaii. We've known each other for many years. Is somebody I certainly look up to in terms of clean energy heroes in the world, people who have accomplished great things. So it's a real pleasure to be here with you, Henk.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it literally is my pleasure. So let's dive right in. So I'm really curious. I heard a little bit about the Blue Planet Alliance yesterday. I'm very familiar with Blue Planet Foundation, but for those who don't know Blue Planet Foundation, the mission behind it, and the Blue Planet Alliance, do you want to give a brief overview of where that all came from?
Sure. So I had a near-death experience in 2005, which led to my finding my missions in life. And first mission came to be in the back of a newspaper. It said, oh, by the way, we're going to kill all the coral in the world by the end of the century. And I went like, what's causing that? And it's ocean acidification, which is caused by the ocean absorbing carbon dioxide, which is caused by us. So my first mission is to end the use of carbon-based fuel. And since at the time... Small mission.
Yep.
I mean, in scope of things.
What are you doing this afternoon? Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I decided to start in Hawaii because I live in Hawaii, and I believe that before you can ask someone to clean their room, you have to clean your own room. So that was my room. Hawaii's my room, and Hawaii's got a $5 billion a year. $5 billion dollars a year addiction to oil.
Yep.
30% goes to jet fuel, 30% goes to ground transportation, 40%, that's $2 billion, goes to making electricity. And this is in a place which is the mecca of renewable energy. We have wind to die for, we have solar, the best solar in the country, and we have geothermal. I mean, it's like crazy that we're spending $2 billion a year on oil. So my foundation, we tried everything. I mean, my background is I'm a computer game designer, so I had no idea how to do any of this. I just knew that I was going to do this. And so we tried everything. And our claim to fame is that we got Hawaii finally, after 7 years of pushing and getting the people on our side, and we got Hawaii to have a mandate of 100% renewable energy by 2045. 100% renewable energy by 2045.
First such mandate in the country.
First one, and now 12 other states and territories have copied our legislation, which includes California, New York, and Illinois, which is half the population of this country. So we've already flipped half the population of the United States to go to 100% renewable energy, which is great. It is great. And we followed it up, by the way. You can't just have a mandate without following it up and making sure that it happens. So what we did is we followed up by changing the business model of the utility so that they make more money by switching to renewable energy. Guess who's our best friend now?
And all of a sudden, they really wanted to be a part of this clean energy transition.
And so here we are.
Kind of amazing.
They're on our side. Their shareholders on our side. So now everyone in Hawaii is aligned, and we're all moving into the next phase, which is. But by the way, the line to get to 100% was supposed to get us to 40% in 2030. We are at 40% now. So we are way ahead of schedule. So the point is, having a mandate sometime in the future just means everybody starts thinking about it. And then when you start thinking about it, you realize, hey, not only is it going to save us a huge amount of money, it's going to happen faster than we ever imagined, and it's just going to benefit everybody. And this is what this industry needs to do. We need to fix climate change for the whole world and stop using carbon-based fuel.
Yeah, and so much of it is how you tell the story, right? And so when you think about it, $5 billion a year, people ask like, what's Hawaii's #1 export? And oftentimes I joke that it's cash. Like literally that we're sending so much money out of our state to buy fossil fuels, which is just bonkers.
I say that the #1 export is happiness, because people come to Hawaii and they're happy.
Yeah.
And so we
I like your
oil
take on it. I like your take on it a lot better than mine.
Happiness, so that's a little bit better of a.
Two sides of the same coin. But in any case, there's no reason to be exporting that much of our hard-earned cash in Hawaii. We could be, investing that in renewables.
By the way, do you know who sells us that oil?
Yeah. Oh.
It's Russia, it's Libya, and it's
best.
Venezuela.
Only the best.
And these are like the best countries in the world for us to be supplying $2 billion a year.
Yep.
You know?
So it's so fascinating with the IRA's passage and how it's like there's countries of concern, and yet we're buying all this oil from all these other countries of concern. It's anyway, we could dive into that in great detail. So the Blue Planet Foundation started. You guys got the mandate passed in Hawaii, which is huge. Now you got the Blue Planet Alliance.
So the Blue Planet Alliance. So I came to the realization that all our best efforts, we flip Hawaii and we flip the rest of the states in the country, which gets us to 6% of the population of the world. Now we've got 3% if you add up all those states, but 6% in our best effort. So now we're starting the same. I'm starting the same thing, but for the rest of the world, starting with island countries. So I've relocated to New York City so I can be close to the United Nations. So I'm working with the United Nations when I can, and I'm working without the United Nations when I have to. And it's mostly when I have to. So all the countries have representatives in New York. I meet with island leaders all the time, and we are figuring out how to do what we did in Hawaii for them.
Yeah.
And some of them are worse off than Hawaii. Hawaii at least has a refinery, so we import crude oil. But they import diesel. There are places in the Pacific where electricity is $1 per kilowatt hour. That's what it costs if you schlep diesel from somewhere far away. That's how much it costs. It's insane.
That seems awfully expensive.
It's very expensive.
I'm no expert, but that does seem awfully.
And these are not people who have rich industries that can afford $1 per kilowatt hour. They're struggling with tourism, and of course, COVID has killed tourism.
Of course,
for a lot of them.
Yeah.
But it's still not enough money to pay for $1 per kilowatt. That's why they're struggling so much.
And that's why so many of them have intermittency problems, lots of blackouts, water supply issues. You need regular power to make sure that people have clean water that flows through their taps.
Here's an issue with diesel: moving parts. So a diesel generator has lots of moving parts, and moving parts wear out. And so then you need to service a diesel generator. So they need to send teams of engineers and parts to very remote locations. This costs an arm and a leg. And then, of course, the supply of diesel is not consistent. Who knows what's going on in the world.
Supply chains never get disrupted in diesel, do they?
Oh, no, I'm sure they don't.
So your focus on island nations makes a lot of sense, and Planet Energy does a lot of work with regard to microgrids, and I love microgrids. It's one of my favorite stories to talk to people about. It really encapsulates the whole story of how we're going to get out of climate change in a small way. You have the power, storage right on site, distributed energy within that community, and the people there benefit. It's reliable. All those things, so many benefits.
Well, let me give you a little backstory of how I got into energy storage. We passed a law in Hawaii that helped the solar industry. There was a rebate. We did a calculation that in a couple of years we're going to have 30 megawatts of rooftop solar. In a couple of years we had 300 megawatts of rooftop solar. Today, 17% of the renewable, 70% of the energy, 70% of the renewable energy in Hawaii comes from rooftop solar. And what happened was so much rooftop solar that the electric company goes, whoa, we can't handle that much variable, incoming electricity from solar. And so they stopped giving out permits to grid tie. And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we built up the solar industry. At its peak, solar industry had more employees than the utility. I think it still does today. But the problem is, what happens if nobody can grid tie? Then all of a sudden it comes to a screeching halt. So the answer to that is storage. So we need storage so that the electric company doesn't get this big surge of electricity when there's peak solar power. So I decided to take my ranch off grid to find out what that's like. And we did a search and found the best battery in the world, because I don't want a battery at my ranch that is toxic. I don't want to have a battery at my ranch that is bad for the
fire.
environment, that will catch fire.
Yeah.
Or is made by a company that isn't going to be around for 20 years, you know? So we did a search and we came up with, at that time it was Sony. Sony is the first company that made lithium-ion batteries in 1991. And then Sony is the first one to come out with lithium ferrous phosphate. The difference between lithium ferrous phosphate and the other lithium-ion batteries like nickel, cobalt, manganese is lithium ferrous phosphate does not need a cooling system because it doesn't get hot. If a battery gets hot, you need a cooling system. Moving parts. Moving parts are the enemy of any kind of installation you have. So no moving part. Maybe there's a little fan on the circuit board. That's about it. But that's fairly easy to replace. If the other chemistries overheat or get punctured or somehow get shocked, they will catch on fire. And this is not fire. This is like fireworks kind of fire. There's nothing you can do to stop the fire. It's, you know, if the instruction to the firefighter is stand back and wait till it's over, because you're not going to be able to do anything to it. With lithium ferrous phosphate, nothing ever happens. And so it's the safest battery. And the reason we chose Sony over the Chinese competitors is that Sony makes the ingredients parts per billion instead of parts per million. So first of all, there's that difference. And the second difference is they have control software that measures the temperature and the state of charge of every cell in every module for 30 years and make sure that they all go up and down equally. And that's what gives you better battery life. Our batteries probably last 2, sometimes 3 times longer than the competitor lithium ion. We have a 15-year warranty, but we haven't found, I've had these at my ranch since 2014. And I think right now we're down from the original charge, we're down to 86%. And that degradation is just going slowly but surely. It's not one of these things where it crashes at some point. It's going to keep on going.
Cool. So you cleaned your room first. You basically got your grid and you took it offline.
And the ranch is a little microgrid. It's an example, and we test all kinds of things. So one of the things that we have at the ranch is we have different inverters. Inverters don't like each other from different companies. We have Outbacks and Solarks, and if you just let them go, they will turn each other off. They'll say there's something wrong because they don't speak the same language. And so we have a control software now that basically tricks all of the inverters into thinking that they're the only ones on the grid, on our grid. And this is a microgrid. I mean, it's an example of a microgrid. Islands need to have microgrids. I mean, that's just, rather than, you look at what just happened in Puerto Rico. If Puerto Rico had a bunch of microgrids, there wouldn't be a blackout. There would be, maybe some small area might have something, but in general, can I talk about Puerto Rico?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, it's a perfect example because it's a disaster that happened, and the schools now that you guys installed your microgrids at are serving as shelters for so many people who are...
They were originally shelters, and after Maria, they all failed as shelters because there was no electricity for any of the emergency shelters, schools. So we basically, the Red Cross funded us and the solar industry in Puerto Rico to retrofit 120 schools. I think it's actually more, I don't have the right number, but minimum 120 schools with our batteries and their solar panels. And so this time, all of the emergency shelters worked. They all had electricity. We have 3 sets of batteries for the kitchen and 3 sets of batteries for the rest of the school. So there's light in the bathrooms, in the bedrooms, whatever you want to call the emergency part, and they can make food.
It's awesome. I mean, it's such a perfect story, and there's so many people who don't know, and they complain, and they hear these stories about how unreliable renewables are. And here's a perfect example of this is like, it's so clear this stuff works, it's reliable, and it's beneficial to have a microgrid so that a power line goes down and it doesn't matter. You have your shelters. You have the emergency basics for people after a storm.
Oh, it's so funny. Huge. I had a problem at my ranch, and the internet wasn't working, and I called up my my CTO. I said, "What's going on? I can't get internet." I said, "Look out your window." And I look out the window, and the rest of that side of the island was black. It was dark. There's a blackout. So the internet was down. The ranch was fine, but the whole internet was down. So it was just so weird, you know, because so used to not having that kind of problem.
That's amazing. So then, you know, obviously microgrid in Puerto Rico, microgrid in Hawaii, it works in warm weather. And then, of course, you guys did this rural Alaskan village above the Arctic Circle. And you put in a 225 kilowatt system with 12 of your BP Ion LX cabinets, which, is this one of them back here?
Yeah, that's one of them.
This is one of them. So we're at the trade show here, and it's great to have a visual and a rotating table to do this on. So you have 12 towers in there. Tell us a little bit about the Alaska project.
Right. So Alaska, basically, how many of these villages get resupplied is airplanes. You know, and to send an airplane to one of those villages, like $100,000, is like an insane amount of money. So all of these remote villages run on diesel, and you know, anything we can do to help them get out from spending all of their money on diesel.
Can't imagine what a kilowatt hour costs there. It's like it's $10.
Ridiculous. So we now have a situation where we have a remote village called Shugnak. Sounds like they offered me to go and visit them, and the way to get there is to spend 2 weeks on a river, river rafting to this place. It's
amazing.
Like, whoa, this is like remote as remote can get. And they recently had a couple of days where they ran completely solar, and it's the first time in memory for them that they didn't have the sound of the generator. I mean, can you imagine having like a massive diesel generator in the middle of your town that's so loud that everybody can hear it all the time?
Runs all the time.
And finally it's quiet.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a big boon for them.
That's great. I love the microgrids. It's such a good story, and the Alaska project proves that it works in ridiculous climate extremes. Like it just works.
Yeah, I didn't think that you know, like that far north we're going to get enough sun, but apparently in the summer you get like tremendous amount of sun.
Yeah.
And so normally they'd be burning diesel during the summer.
Sure.
And now basically they don't have to.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
gone way down.
And it's from estimates, it's saving the village $200,000 a year or something along those lines for a modest sized system, a modest sized community.
Yeah.
So the financial benefits are obvious.